Farming is the chosen way of life for more than 26 million Americans. The love of the land has been passed on from father to son, from mother to daughter, and generations of farm families have created a tradition that is at the roots of our national life. With nearly 6 million American families living on farms, it is only natural that the well-being of our country is founded on the prosperity of the American farmer. When farmers are doing well, the people in our cities usually are prospering too. Because anything that contributes to better farming is good for the whole country, America's progressive oil industry has long been deeply interested in the farmer's problems. A good example of this interest is the part the oil companies play in developing the use of power on the land. From their refineries come fuels and lubricants to meet the special needs of power farmers. In their laboratories, they develop an ever-increasing number of petroleum chemicals for plant growth, plant protection, and good soil management. They work with colleges and universities on the improvement of products and on getting product information to the farmers. They make it convenient for the farmer to buy fuels and lubricants by delivering them to his door. And over the years, power in agriculture has so revolutionized life on the farm that the span of time between 1900 and today might just as well be reckoned in centuries as in years. This, then, is the story of those centuries as they were lived on one farm, the Salter Farm.
It's now almost 50 years since my father, John Salter, brought his bride, Mary Fremont Salter, to the farm that's been our family home for half a century. They were an ordinary couple, my parents, whose lives would be quite forgotten now, except that during all those years, they kept a record of the everyday events on the farm. I've been reading their journal over again tonight, and I've found there, in the earthy phrases of John and Mary Salter, as fascinating an American story as I've read in many years. The story begins with an entry dated June 15th, 1900.
Brought my bride Mary home to the farm today. Arrived about noon. Shows Mary her new home. Welcome to your new home, Mary.
Oh, it's beautiful. I'm so happy, John.
Don't it beat all, Mary? Even on your first day home, the cows have to be milked.
I'm glad we've got cows to milk, John, and land to plant, and a lovely house to live in, and...
You like it then, Mary?
I love it, John.
Those early years of my parents' married life read like happy ones, but they had their misfortunes, too.
Old Major died of colic today, right in the middle of getting the hay in. Mary and I praying the good weather holds out. We'll try to buy one of old Ben Jones's horses tomorrow.
She's a good sound mare, John.
Mm-hmm. has she been?
6.
More like 12, ain't she? How much will you take for her?
150.
Give you 100.
She's worth more than 150, John, but I know you're in trouble. Make it 125. It's a deal, John.
The old robber. That horse ain't worth a cent more than 100.
He knew you were in a bad fix.
If that ain't bad enough, I have to waste the whole day when I should have been getting that hay in.
Giddy up.
The next day's entry in the diary is but a single sentence.
July 9th, 1905. The hay was ruined.
As the years went by, some of the isolation of farm life gradually disappeared.
December 4th, 1910. How times do change. We've got a telephone now. Called the vet in town today and could hear him real plain. There's already 12 families on our line.
And imagine, Helen Simpson worrying about giving the baby barley water. Why, I remember how fretful our Johnny was.
Those years when I was growing up were good years for John and Mary Salter, but they were not easy years. Plowing, disking, cultivating. They were backbreakers. And the amount of land a man could till was limited by his physical endurance. We grew enough to supply all our own needs, potatoes and the other vegetables, pork, chickens, fresh eggs, and we certainly ate well enough. Mary Salter saw to that. She was a genius in that old-fashioned kitchen of hers, but there wasn't a great deal left to sell for cash. What there was, John Salter took to town, 15 miles west of us, an all-day trip over bad roads. And at the end of the year, it wasn't often the journal showed much of a net profit.
Well, that's it.
Did we get rich last year?
Not rich exactly, but we did better than the year before.
We still don't have enough saved up to buy that tractor, do we, John?
No, not quite enough. What we could do if I had that tractor now that we've got more land.
Can we afford it, John? We need so many other things, you know.
Look, Mary, it's like this. When you buy a tractor, you get something that actually manufactures income. It'll make the money for us to buy the other things.
Even a new hat?
A new hat for you and a lot of things.
Well, I can't wait for that tractor.
It was several more years before John Salter could fulfill his ambition. And when he finally did, his prediction came true from the first.
September 1st, 1918. The new tractor is paying its way handsomely. Only thing I don't like is having to go to town to bring home fuel for it.
Once he had his first tractor, John Salter was impatient to make the most of it. Plowing was one of the very first jobs that could take advantage of the new power. Farm implements were rapidly being redesigned for use with tractors. John Salter was the first man in the county to do his mowing with mechanical power. He was the first to speed up his groundwork with power. Some of the neighbors scoffed at him, but they came to watch nonetheless, and then to follow his example. He was the first to use tractor power for planting seed. He was the first to pull a side delivery rake with his tractor. He was the first to use his tractor as stationary power to run his feed grinder. John Salter had a very good reason for being enthusiastic about power farming. In the old days of horses and muscle, it had been a struggle to produce enough for his family with a little bit left over to sell. Power had let him increase his production to such an extent that he could easily supply his own needs and have a sizable surplus to sell on the market. Using power in many ways had put real cash profits into farming. So it was only natural that John Salter welcomed anything new in power farming.
John, I want to show you what you're getting in that new tractor of yours.
I've got a new tractor, Henry. I'm going to use gasoline. I'll get more power. That's all I want to know.
But how you're getting it is interesting. Look here. In the other tractor, you had a pressure on the fuel mixture as the piston squeezes it of maybe 95 pounds per square inch. When the spark ignites the mixture, the pressure rises to, say, 380 pounds on the power stroke. In your new high compression tractor, the mixture is squeezed tighter into a smaller space, and the pressure may be as high as 145 pounds. When the mixture is ignited, the pressure on the power stroke may rise to 580 pounds. This big difference in pressure on the power stroke is the reason for all the extra power.
All right, Henry, all right. I still say I'm getting more power, and that's all I care about. With all that extra power from high compression and still more power from those new rubber tires, boy, I'll have power to burn.
You think you're kidding, John.
No, Henry, I'm not kidding. Nobody appreciates more than I do what power means to a farmer.
That's what Dad used to say about you, John.
Well, your dad knew because he sold me my first tractor. I dealt with him for years. Anytime you or anyone else can show me how to get more power, I'll listen, Henry.
So long, John.
Seeing you.
When he said anyone else, John Salter probably was thinking of another good friend and advisor who called on him often.
Come on in, Harry. Hello, Harry.
Hi, John.
I'll need oil and gasoline. Oh, and Mrs. Salter wants some things. Here.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes. I want you to look at the pitman bearing in my mower. It's throwing grease. Maybe you can tell me what's wrong.
Sounds like you're using the wrong kind. Maybe a different grease will fix it up. Let's take a look.
Come on down to the shed.
In contrast to the old days when he drove to town for tractor fuel, John Salter now had such supplies delivered to his door. And the tank wagon driver had become a friend and advisor in whom he had confidence. As he himself said, John Salter was quick to seize anything that would give more power better performance and greater economy. And more than one farmer in our county was grateful to him for his enterprise. This modest entry, made July 2nd, 1940, only hints at the real story.
Helped Tom Maloney get his wheat cut.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special announcement from the Weather Bureau. A severe wind and rainstorm is expected to reach this vicinity about noon tomorrow.
Lucky we got that wheat cut. Might have lost the whole crop if that storm is bad enough.
I was thinking of Tom Maloney. Out of the hospital only a couple of days. Never get his in with the outfit he's got.
Let's go, Dad.
Just got it over the radio, Tom. Big storm coming up. Johnny and I'll give you a lift.
Thanks, John. And you, Johnny.
We'll start cutting from that corner over there, okay?
Fine. Sure. Thanks, fellas.
Well, John and Mary Salter's story ends soon after that. I've only given you a few of the highlights. But John Salter's spirit carries on, not only on our farm, but throughout the whole county, and even further. It was he who encouraged Henry Carter to buy that forage harvester he's never regretted owning. He was largely responsible for George Baker's getting the terracer that helped him retain the soil on that hilly place of his. Wherever he went, he preached the story of power. Power because it would do more work in less time. He knew power had given him more cash crops to sell, and he wanted his friends and neighbors to profit also. He was a leader in conservation farming, and he knew that power is the essence of efficient soil management. Time and again, I've heard him say, if a man can do it in a day, a machine can do it in an hour. And then he'd probably add, and do it a darn sight better too. I think maybe the reason he was such a booster for machines was that he loved farming, and he knew the time was coming when, if our country was going to continue to prosper and our people were to enjoy a higher standard of living, farming, which is the basis of our economy, had to become more profitable. I think that because the last entry in his diary seems to suggest it. I guess it was appropriate that that entry was addressed to me, who had to carry on after he was gone. October 10th. Farming is a good occupation, Johnny, a good way of living. But you can't stand still. Remember that. The biggest thing that's happened to farming in my lifetime is the introduction of mechanical power. It helped us grow more crops, take better care of our land, make more money. But we've only started to use power. I can't even guess at all the ways it's going to help you, but I'm sure of one thing. You're going to have a richer life because of it than I've had. Now it's up to you younger fellows to carry on. Power has given you a pattern for progress.